Are you willing to do anything to serve and protect the people of the silo?
Yes.
Welcome to Episode Echoes. We're continuing our brief recaps of all the episodes of Silo Season 1, breaking down the key moments, twists, and of course, all those hidden clues you might have missed. Today we're reviewing Episode 5, Janitor's Boy. As always, if you have not caught up to the events of this episode yet, you can watch my brief reviews of the events of the previous episodes using the link above. And because this review will be describing key plot points and events of Silo Episode 5, a spoiler alert is in place. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop when we release new videos. Episode 5 starts with Juliette going through George's file, examining transcripts and documents that Holston had hidden away. While nothing immediately suspicious jumps out, she can't help but wonder why Holston felt the need to conceal all this information. The investigation gets interrupted by news of Deputy Marnes's death, and in typical Silo fashion, his body isn't even cold before Sims announces Paul Billings as the new deputy sheriff. Yes, the same Paul Billings who Bernard and Sims wanted instead of Juliette originally. You can imagine how well that sits with her. When examining Marne's body, Juliette discovers something interesting, a slip of paper with Doris circled. This detail, which connects back to earlier episodes, becomes another piece of the puzzle she's trying to solve. Meanwhile, the management group, Sims, Paul and Bernard, decides to hold a joint funeral for both Marnes and Jans. What I found particularly interesting is Bernard's approach to spinning the narrative. He suggests presenting them as forbidden lovers, and in a somewhat ironic twist proposes a race to the top to celebrate Ruth's tenure, something she actually despised while in office. The funeral proceeds with the traditional apple-biting ceremony in their makeshift orchard. Back at her office, Juliette finds Hank contemplating the Holding 3 door. He explains that Martha and Shirley sent him to check on her well-being, having skipped the burial himself despite receiving an invitation. The plot thickens when Sandy approaches Juliette with an interesting proposition. Help in exchange for solving Marnes's murder, off the books of course. Sandy's warning about things potentially getting messy quickly proves prophetic, as she hints at plans to install Billings and frame an innocent person. Just like we saw in earlier episodes, the political machinations continue to unfold. Juliette and Billings investigate together until she breaks away to question Patrick Kennedy. Remember him? Doris was his wife, and his relationship with Marnes was anything but cordial. The episode presents some clever misdirection here. While Billings is meeting with Doug, Sims's new shadow at Judicial, there's an elaborate scheme brewing to discredit Juliette. The endgame is to send Juliette back to Mechanical in disgrace. The plan involves framing Ralph Melby while planting evidence in Kennedy's apartment. But in a twist that reminds me of her resourcefulness, Juliette outsmarts them by arresting Kennedy instead. This leads to a thrilling chase through the silo during the race to the top, with Juliette pursuing Doug. The sequence ends with her nearly falling to her death but managing to capture Doug, though not before breaking his finger in the process. The episode wraps up with several significant developments. Sims, showing his true colours, pushes Doug to his death after reciting the familiar words. Juliette presents her version of events to Judge Meadows, who we meet for the first time in this episode, explaining how Doug supposedly took his own life while facing arrest. And Sandy gets voluntarily reassigned to the lower levels to be closer to family, just when she was starting to warm up to Juliette. Can I just add that at this point I am beginning to find Sims is an unlikable character. If there's one flaw in this series, it has to be him. His lines are simply too slow burn, forced and uninteresting, clearly designed to give anyone with half a brain the vibe that he is a bad guy. The monologue before he kills Doug is as cliché as bad guy monologues go. The final scenes give us more insight into the silo's mysteries. Juliette travels down to see her friends in Mechanical, and we learn from Martha's that she never understood why the Pact had two major restrictions: no mechanized vertical movement and limits on magnification power. Just like earlier episodes that ended with new questions, this one concludes with Juliette planning to use her newfound trust with Bernard to investigate George Wilkins' case with a Pez dispenser as bait. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to Episode Echoes for more TV and movie reviews. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts, so feel free to share your own take in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.